We'll start out a little bit about where are you from?
I'm from northwest suburbs of Minneapolis, Brooklyn Park, Maple Grove. I have a house in Plymouth now, but I'm renting that house out because I live in Shanghai now.
Okay. And what brought you to St. John's?
For this event, or what brought me here for
To
school?
St. John's for school.
Well, you know, I always went to schools that had very tight-knit communities, and there's some draw that I had towards that. And so I wasn't really interested in larger universities in that. And St. John's just felt right. I can't even explain it. Just, I remember my day on campus here, and for some reason that felt right. I don't know why.
All right. What did you major in St. John's?
Business administration. I was a management major, no minors, straight management. As so many.
As so many.
At St. John St. Ben's too.
And when did you first decide to go to China and get involved with your family business there?
It was 2006 when my father, who would eventually become my boss then, asked if I was interested to go and try to start an operation in China. And he really didn't know what that meant at that point, and neither did I, frankly. But he asked if I was interested, and I said, actually, no, I'm not. Because I had a job which I really loved. I had taken a step away from business and into working in a school environment. I was able to do my sales and marketing type job in a school environment, and it was great. I had a ton of time off. I had the school holidays. I didn't really want to move out of that, but my curiosity got the best of me, and a couple weeks later I found myself online, living in Shanghai or whatever it is, just looking up what it's like to live in China, and I figured I could get a free trip out of it to China. So I called up my father and I said, actually, I am interested, but I have to go to China first to know if I could live and work there. And he said, sure enough. So a month later, I was on a plane on my way to China, and the school I was working at had found out that I was looking into this. And they basically told me that I needed to make a decision within about 2 weeks after I came back. Because if I was going to leave, they needed to find somebody to replace me. Which I understood, that was fair, actually. And so I came back, and on my way back from China, and the trip was amazing. It was totally shocking and eye-opening, and a great experience. On my way home, I just could not think of reasons why not to do it. The worst thing I thought could happen is I move home. It doesn't work, and I move home, and I get a job somewhere. So
excellent. So then you moved out there right away, or after the 6 to 12 month license registration process?
Yeah, I had to wrap a few things up at the school, and then I started working at our U.S. operation because I really didn't know our business very well. I mean, I had always been around it, but I didn't know it well enough to actually run the business. So I had to get a crash course in how to make the parts. I mean, you name it. I had a training program which had me out in the factory working, doing manual labor, so that I had a sense of what it took to make the products. I mean, business-wise, I had the skills and the education and the theory to know how to run a business, and I had tried to run a business, but I didn't know enough about our business to be able to do that. And so for about 6 months I did that, and then I moved to China full-time. And for a year, it was just myself, or for about 7 months it was only me. And then finally I hired someone once we kind of had our business license going and things like that. And we've been growing ever since. So.
What was the biggest challenge for you, or has been, since Shanghai?
The biggest challenge...
Maybe besides for the language barrier.
Yeah, frankly, the biggest challenge is that things are different now when I come home. I mean, it was different when I went to China. Obviously, it's a culture shock when you go there. Well, that shock does something to you. I mean, it becomes a part of you. And some of the international students can attest to this. It becomes a part of you, and when you go back home, you're going to see it very differently. You're going to notice your own culture when you go home. Sometimes that can be hard, I think, because you see things that you thought were so great about America, and you come back and now you're saying, well, they do it differently somewhere else, and it seems to be working better. So, there's this constant battle in your head, I think, and until you learn that that's what the world is all about, and that's what being a global citizen is all about, asking yourself those types of questions, you don't really know how to deal with it. So that's challenging, especially at the beginning, I would say.
Definitely. What is your biggest success since being over in Shanghai?
Biggest success? I would say creating a brand with something that there is no word for Midwest. Our company name is Midwest Rubber. There is no name for Midwest. Zhongbei, I think, right? Zhongbei. But there's no word for that. They don't know what the Midwest is. So to be able to take that, and now it's a brand in China, and we get phone calls because we're Midwest Rubber. It's mind-blowing to me. And I know that it's because of our focused efforts on that. We took specific actions, and it resulted in creating this brand. And now that brand is going to take us into the future, and it's taking us into the European market, that brand images. So,
do you see yourself going into the European market then?
Yes.
As well, eventually? How long do you think that growth will be from Shanghai to the European market?
Well, actually, we already started. I asked the question early on if there was enough sales volume in China to sustain our business, for our business to continue to grow and become profitable. And I was concerned that there wasn't, because the industry that we're in is developing in China, but it's not developed. And that means that they weren't buying very high numbers of our products. So the question was, how do we reach a developed market? And the answer to that was Europe. Europe is a very developed market. They already have the machines that need our parts, and we have a supply chain in China at that point. And we said, well, if we have a supply chain that we trust for America, and it's very similar to Europe, then why aren't we also trying to sell this into Europe? And so I started traveling to Europe, and I didn't know what I didn't know, so I just started calling on customers there. And after 3 or 4 visits, I realized, wow, we actually do have something to offer these companies. And within a year and a half, I started going there about a year and a half ago. Now we have 5 active customers in Europe. So, and my responsibility now is not just Midwest Rubber Asia. It's managing the growth and the business development of all of Midwest Rubber's global operations. And what we're going to do in Europe is still undetermined. Right now we have a salesman in a warehouse, but we may buy a company in Europe and try to expand there more aggressively. So those are all questions that we have yet to answer.
Excellent. You're very accomplished for a young age.
Thank you.
Definitely. One of my last questions would be, what do you have to recommend for students who want to be involved in the internships abroad, or opportunities abroad, maybe through your company or others that you know of?
Yeah, I would say that there are so many companies that could benefit from interns. I know, because we've had a number of interns from St. John's and from China. In fact, we've used it to grow, because in China there's a big gap in talent, in manager talent. You have an older generation, state-owned companies. You have a younger generation. They all know English, and they are used to the open door policy that China's had. But you're missing these middle-level managers who can speak English and have the confidence and experience to make decisions. Frankly, that's a strength of Americans, is that we're very good at handling complex situations and making decisions. So there's a lot of benefit to a company in China to have, interns from America as an influence and challenging the other people with questions and ideas and things like that. I would say in terms of advice, you need to know that, you need to show that, and you need to show that to the right people. You can't just go online, don't go to Career Builder and do a job search, internship in China. You're not going to find one. Call people, go to seminars, talk to people, network, go to China. Go to China and say you're gonna you're gonna teach English on the side to make money, and you're gonna look for a job while you're there. I have a lot of friends who've done that, and they've landed good jobs, even when they couldn't find jobs in the U.S. here. So
excellent.
It's very doable.
Okay, that's great. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.